There it is. We are live. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. First order of business will be the swearing in of the new board member. The new board member, or new old.
Sam, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Daniel Cash,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties as general member
the duties as general member
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
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 Yeah, that's why I have to have my cheat sheet. I did put it on board docs in case you wanted to read that.
If you want to go home and reflect on it, please do. Consent agenda. The recommended action is approve the following items, which are included in the consent agenda. 5A, the meeting minutes from June 1st, Board of Education meeting. 6M, the administrative and management confidential salary benefits and contracts. And 7C, the special education packet. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second by Colleen.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions, withdrawals from the consent agenda? If not, please vote.
I just want to thank Karen for her service. Signing up for us for
Another stint.
another stint.
We have
Five yes.
5 yes, 0 no, so the motion passes. For the good of the cause? Any?
There was not.
Okay. Reports, future planning presentations. Thank you very much for attending this evening. Roger, you want to
Sure.
take over?
I'm glad to welcome our three principals tonight to this meeting in order to share their future plans for next year. Just as an overview, this has been an ongoing effort here to provide continuous planning for our programs, academic, extracurricular, school-wide, district-wide programs. And even though we were in the midst of COVID this year, we continued with our future planning efforts. And so tonight, we've invited all three principals to share just a small piece, overview of what those future plans look like. We also have more detailed documents posted on board docs, and they're available to both board members and the public, or just board members?
I think I just put them for the board members. I can move them.
Okay, all right, but we're going to get an overview from each principal. So why don't we always start with the elementary school principal. So Sonia Franklin, how should we do this on Zoom? Should we turn a computer?
Oh, I can turn my, well, I can't turn my computer on. Maybe Dana would like to turn his
Would you
computer
be able
around
to do
since
that,
he's
Dana?
gonna
Would
be
you be able to?
closest.
And
I mean,
then
I
you could
can hear
then you could
everything.
Unmute, and then the principals could be heard. Is that possible?
Thank you.
Are you able to hear now, Colleen?
I can't hear anything.
You can't.
I can hear you, but I can't hear Sonia.
We'll just move.
Colleen, can you hear me?
I can hear Rick. I can hear Roger, but I couldn't hear
All right,
Sonia.
Now we'll try this.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Sonia.
Okay. So some of the things that we've learned from the past year and things that we're going to keep is the continued use of more outdoor activities, as well as we've been using a staggered dismissal system. And we found that that's a great way to keep the kids a little bit more subdued during that time. We've been more flexible and adaptable when it comes to assignments and how we assess students. So we want to make sure that we keep that up, as well as our increased cleaning protocols. Some things that we look towards the future of doing would be some more collaboration between buildings and improved communication between the two buildings, including a 5th and 6th grade transitional program. We have something now, but the 5th grade team would like to have something a little bit more in depth and be more of a part of working with the 6th grade team for that. We would like to see more increased team professional development. So specifically, maybe a 5th grade attending a PD together, 1st grade attending PD together, that type of thing. And working with more life skills for the students, things like goal setting and the idea of working hard and persevering through problems. And we think that all of this will help us with that opportunity gap and maybe perhaps get the students to realize that there is an opportunity gap, to understand what that gap comes from and understand how to overcome it themselves instead of necessarily being having those barriers taken away from them, but how to approach those barriers better themselves for the future. So that is my 3 pages wrapped up in 2 minutes or less, as requested.
Well,
Good job.
Thanks, Sonia.
appreciate that, Mrs. Franklin. But as we said, you have a long document there with lots of details, and our future planning efforts do go on for days, and every member of the school community gets to participate, and so there are many details involved in all that.
It is really 3 pages.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about killing that snow day?
There has been, and we have for now decided not to do that. You mean going with remote days instead?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, and that was a
Early
discussion that we had in I don't know, the fall, faculty-wide, and it was pretty unanimous. Yeah. Thanks. All right, who would like to go next? Should we go in age order?
You
I
mean
meant
grade?
student.
No, we're
Grade.
not by that. Student age you had me passed.
Sorry about that.
Tammy and I are actually going to present together because we are a unified building here. And so when we do our future planning, Tammy and I are both a part of each other's teams that come in to present to us. And decisions that we make here at school, we try and make as much as possible on a unified front as well. But first, I think coming out of COVID, the number one thing that we hope to do coming into next year is to resume some type of normalcy as best as we possibly can. The teachers have done a phenomenal job, the teachers and staff this past year, as well as our students have. They've done an exceptional job of navigating COVID. And so for that, we are very, very grateful. And we hope that we'll be able to lift some of those and get a little bit of that quote unquote normalcy back, and the regular movement into the school day is probably both of our number one priorities. But we have broken ours down into next year. We have a 2 to 3 year, and then we have a 5+ year plan. One of the things that we have done is, and we hope to do and continue, is our summer reading program. This year, the English department, along with Laurel Reese, worked very diligently to get some funding so that we can do our summer read program. So every student in this building has done a trek down or will be doing a trek to the Bookstore Plus to get a book to read for the summer. Thank you to the LEAF program for their generous donation, and the Education Fund for helping to support that. The Ed Fund, I know, is working very hard to do that on a regular annual basis. So we are forever grateful for that, to be able to continue that for next year. The big question also too is DC. Obviously, because of COVID, we didn't take our amazing 8th grade DC trip. So our current 8th grade students will be hopefully taking that, we hope, next year, along with our upcoming 8th grade. So we will have a dual trip. We still have a lot of details to work out, whether we're going to do a combined 8-9 trip, or we're going to do an 8 and then a separate 9 trip. But both of those 2 cohorts will be going to DC more than likely in the spring, so that we can allow some time for all of this to settle.
One thing that we started this year, but we're going to continue next year, is the vertical alignment, which actually Sonia mentioned. One of the goals that we heard in just about every single one of our future planning meetings was the communication between buildings. And so we started that this year with one of the superintendent conference days. We got the vertical alignment process going, but we have a lot of work to do. So that is something that we're absolutely going to continue next year. And then one other big thing is the senior project. We're looking to kind of revise that, calling it a capstone project, so that it doesn't necessarily only happen in a student's senior year, but starting to introduce it as a freshman project, like the end of their freshman year, we would start to introduce that idea so that they're still invested in whatever it is that they're looking at doing. And carrying that over their years within the building. What happens a lot of times is senior year, they're doing a project just to complete something, but they don't really have the passion for that project. And so that's really what we're trying to get into the senior project at this point is that passion and giving them time to grow with their ideas.
Over the next 2 to 3 years, this was repeatedly came up over and over and over again in our future planning meetings, and that is the need to have a full-time social worker in the district. The thing that the social worker does is connect the school with the families, as well as providing counseling and support, mental health support for our kids, which we know coming out of COVID is there's a huge need for it right now. And our counselors are doing an awesome job. Their job is really to help those kids to function here in school as best as they possibly can. Their plates are extremely full, but to be able to add a social worker on that to help bridge that connection between school and families would be tremendous.
We're also looking to add on to our current alternative education program. Right now we have an 8th grade alt ed program, but then really going into high school, there isn't the support for those students in 9th grade. We do have students attending the PASS program, but as they enter their junior and senior year, if they're also attending a CTE program, we don't see those students for their entire day. So looking to come up with a creative way to kind of keep those students engaged in school. That's not the traditional classroom setting would be a goal over the next few years.
So then we take a look at our next 5+ years. And one of the things that we have repeatedly have talked about that we are hoping that we will be able to find some funding to be able to do is the 5th grade has their trip to Albany. We now have the 8th grade trip to DC, and hopefully to add potentially a junior trip to New York City to go to a Broadway show. We did that one year. We went down to Hamilton, which was absolutely an amazing experience for those students. But to see if we can have like 3 different really big trips that these kids take. And so we're looking to try and get that done within the next 5+ years.
And also working in a mentoring program for all of our students. A few years ago, we started to try to assign mentors to students who needed the support. And that seemed to be a very successful program. what we're kind of envisioning for the next 5 years would be more of a, almost like that college advisor role, where they have somebody that they can go to when needed. And assigning maybe 4 or 5 students per adult in the building so that they have that small group that they can work with. And giving the students a little bit of choice in that too. So it's not necessarily an assignment and a forced connection, but giving both the teacher and the student a little bit of say in that relationship and that connection.
And that's a 612 program. There's lots of other stuff that's on our little flyer here. That should be in your board docs. So.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from the school board?
Teresa,
Colleen?
Teresa,
on.
do you,
Let's get
does the 8th grade class, do they take their trip in the fall? I couldn't remember what you said.
So the question is, does the 8th grade trip take the, does the 8th grade take the trip in the fall?
Tony, we've done it both times. We've done it, we started out in the spring, then we flipped it to
The fall, and we flipped it back to the spring. This coming year, it will be in the spring because of COVID. We
Okay.
need a time to allow that dust to settle.
Okay.
And to give ourselves some time to do planning, because there's a lot of planning that's involved with it.
Oh,
So
okay, great.
definitely within the spring.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. How about, why don't you try with my volume on?
I can hear you, Rick.
Can you hear Dana?
Did you hear me, Colleen?
I can hear you too, Dana.
Okay. We continue to, I guess, outperform, overperform. We're pretty much, for revenue purposes, we're pretty close to where we were last year, 99.4 versus 95.4%. So a little difference of $73,000, but that's well within the range of a typical year. It's really on the expenditure side where we're seeing still a reduction, 75% this year compared to 86.4%. If you look at it, the projection at this point is about $1.3 million. Just like 2 months ago, we were hovering around that $700,000 range. But we do have some additional expenses coming up. We will be paying, we have our band payments coming up at the end of June, and that is going to be a little higher than last year's payment. So about $200,000. By no means does it equalize everything, but that is an expense that we didn't incur as large of an expense that we incurred last year. I'll have a better grip after Friday in terms of where we stand, and as I start moving title funds around, I'll know probably by midweek next week where a better idea in terms of our surplus is going to be. The reason this Friday is our last payroll of the year. So we have not only our normal payroll, but also the balloon payments will be going out as well. It's basically for those staff members that have stretched their salary over 26 pay periods as opposed to 20. So they get a balloon payment of about 5 checks all in one. So that's all going out Friday. I'll know probably more so in terms of the difference, but we're still looking similar to where we were the last couple of years in terms of having a positive surplus. Questions on the performance? In the end, I look at it as when we spend less than what we bring in, it's a good year. Next is the Treasury Reports. This is pretty similar to the last few months. There's, in terms of what we have in our cash sweep, in our basically our bank accounts. Out of that $12 million, about $8 million of it is tied to the general appropriation. A little over $3 million is connected to the capital projects funds. So, I mean, we're still at a separate discussion, but we're still looking good there on that end as well, in terms of what's left for expenses for the capital project and what we still have. In the end, some decisions will have to be made in terms of that leftover, that reserve. We have decided to roll with another band as opposed to turning the band into a bond. That was just the band was just picked up by Morgan Stanley earlier this week at a rate of 0.186. So out of a $17 million band, we're going to be paying $31,000 in interest. So pretty good rates. And a lot of factors, obviously, what the market is, but also it's a testament in terms of our financial status, where we are in our standings. I mean, I think we are A+ in terms of ratings through Moody's rating services, and it's been that way for a number of years. We're definitely not a fiscally stressed district at this point. But as you can see with the Treasury Report, pretty straightforward in terms of where we are, and we continue to see large outstanding checks because, again, I sound like a broken record, but it's really about timing. When we make payments, with this, the whole COVID thing is we definitely we've gone to fewer warrants throughout the month. We typically try to do 2 a month. I think we're doing about 1 a month just because of timing, and as a result, we continually see large outstanding checks each month, and that's just because of that. Questions on the Treasury Report?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Superintendent's report.
Colleen, you can hear me now? All right, you're our test case out there. I'm just going to talk about where we are in the school year because we are near the end. And so that means that with 2 weeks to go, there's plenty going on. And I'll try and fill you in, provide you at least with a brief sketch of what those things are. So tomorrow, Wednesday, the 16th, this is the second day of our vaccination clinic here at the school. So those people who received their first shot 3 weeks ago, and that was a number of students as well as some adults from the community, including parents, they'll be receiving their second shot tomorrow. Originally, the first shot was in the gymnasium. I believe we're moving the location to the auditorium for this second shot. So just as a reminder, this is a collaborative effort with the Essex County Health Department. The health department has planned a number of clinics throughout the county, including school locations, and we've worked with them along with some providers, some friendly faces that people know from past visits to the doctor who have been here helping out and providing those shots. So that's tomorrow. Ongoing, and this started yesterday, high school students are taking final exams. So this is final exam week, and next week is as well, including Regents Exams. So we have school exams, and then we have Regents Exams. Now you might remember I shared with you that it's a much shorter list of Regents Exams this year because of COVID. But those 4 scheduled Regents exams are English, living environment, algebra, and earth science. And they will be starting, the first one is this Thursday morning, and then next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings. So that Thursday morning Regents exam, I believe it's earth science, is the last exam that any of our high school students will take. And so that's really the last time for students to be in the building in, I guess, what you would call a normal way. So best of luck, though, to all of our students on their exams, and of course to their teachers who are just as committed to those students getting good grades as those students are. And then best of luck to them on all the grading that goes along with that. Middle school classes will continue through the end of this week, and that's through June 18th, and then that will bring to an end the middle school school year. So they're going to end the day, though, with a picnic for students and staff, a nice way to end the year for middle school students. The 8th grade celebration is Thursday night. So that is at 6 p.m. and it's going to be in the auditorium. Attendance is limited because of COVID, but the event will be similar to what 8th graders have experienced in the past. So congratulations to 8th graders for celebrating the end of their middle school career. Moving on to the elementary school. Tomorrow is a special day for the elementary school students. It's book shopping day. You heard some comments about summer reading at the elementary school. Their summer reading has essentially been this book shopping day where students are able to select books that they enjoy reading, they want to read, and bring them home and keep them for their very own. So it's summer reading, but it's self-directed. And we have found that when students get to pick their own books, they are more likely to read them, they're more likely to enjoy them. So this has been an annual event, and it's been organized by the elementary school's reading teacher, and that's Laura Coffin. She has done just a tremendous job throughout the years raising funds for these books. And so thanks to Laura Coffin, and also thanks to our very generous community for providing those funds that has gone to purchasing these books this year as well as in previous years. So that's tomorrow. Next week, we start to celebrate the end of the year for elementary school students. So kindergartners will be celebrating their final day on Tuesday. That's June 22nd, a week from today. And that'll be at 10 p.m. They're going to have a parade. You might remember that last year was the first time they did this, of course, due to COVID, but it was a very nice event. So they'd like to continue that this year. So it'll be similar to last year's event. And it will also mark the end of their kindergarten year. So a nice way for them to celebrate the end of the year and the beginning of summer for them. 5th grade will be celebrating the end of their school career, their elementary school career, that is, on Thursday. And so Thursday is both the last day of school for elementary school students as well as the 5th grade celebration. That's at noon. So congratulations to all those 5th graders as they complete their elementary school career. Friday the 25th, so that's Thursday, right? The next day, Friday the 25th, that is graduation day for high school seniors. So the class of 2021 celebrates their high school graduation next Friday with a rain date of Saturday. As you know, we are planning an outdoor event. It will be at the horse show grounds. We're planning on a relatively large year, right, compared to last year, closer to what we've done in the past. Maximum capacity of 500 people participating. We are hopeful that that will be a welcome way to celebrate this big event and this wonderful rite of passage for our graduates. So congratulations to our seniors and their parents for this big event. Friday is also the last day for teachers. So our faculty will also be celebrating the beginning of their summer on Friday. That's really the end of the year for students and teachers. But just as a reminder, the school board must continue working throughout the summer. I wouldn't want you to think you got the summer off, right? So our next meeting, the board's reorganization meeting, will be Tuesday, July 6th. So that is the first meeting. I know we have a few in the summer. That also happens to coincide with the first day of summer school. So we do have students who will return to school this summer for a 6-week program starting on that day, the 6th. And we are anticipating a larger number of summer school students in person this year than we had last year. Last year it was a very small number focused on our extended school year students. And this year we'll have general education, special education students at all levels. So we are planning a summer school very similar to what we've had in the past before last year. So we're almost back to normal in many ways. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. And then just one more time, this has been quite a year. We've said it before. We need to say it more. It's been challenging, but people have risen to that challenge. So congratulations to all the people who have made this year successful. And that includes all the grown-ups as well as all the students. So congratulations to our students, our teachers, our staff members, to you, our board members, for also making it through this year, our families. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for all of your support. We would not have accomplished what we accomplished this year without everybody working together. So congratulations really to our entire school community. And of course, best wishes for a very happy summer vacation. And whether you have a board meeting or not, I hope you get a chance to go out and enjoy the summer. So that's everything I have. Any questions or comments?
Thanks, Roger.
Hi, Colleen.
Thanks so much. Great report.
Great, thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. We'll move right on to E, which is policy first reads. We have 7 policies that are under first read. I remind you that this is the time that we review these policies and also give feedback on them, ask questions, and suggestions for any changes prior to the second read and the adoption of them. So the gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms, the equity, inclusion, and diversity in education, sexual harassment of students, sexual harassment of employees, curriculum and curriculum development, and online learning and course credit are the 7 policies. Any questions or comments on these?
Maybe I should make a couple.
Sure.
First of all, this slate of policies comes directly from the policy committee. So the policy committee had its June meeting. That was last week. Worked hard to try and address some of the needed changes in these policies. Karen's member of that meeting. Thank you very much for that committee. Thank you very much, Karen. Patty Gallagher chairs that committee. And we have a number of other members as well. So the policy committee's work has led to this. I don't need to go over all of the changes, though I'm happy to answer questions. I do, however, want to linger a bit on the diversity, equity, and inclusivity in education policy because it's been talked about so widely and because it's unlike most of the other policies in that this one was written by us from the ground up rather than handed to us as a template from NISPA. This one was worked on for many, many months.
You're muted.
I'm muted. Well, that wouldn't be good.
And I shut my microphone off, so that might have.
Sorry, Colleen. Sorry, Colleen. Now I'm not muted. So I've been talking about the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And I said the reason why this stands out is because unlike most of the policies, which are essentially NISPA templates that we then tweak, Policy committee generally does the work off of those templates. This one was really prepared really from the ground up. So it's very much a locally developed policy. It's also been worked on for many months from members of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So we have had input from dozens of people through that process prior to getting to the policy committee. And then the policy committee also reviewed it and made its normal changes, which is to address language and clarity as they always do. So I think what I would like to do is just to review it maybe in a little bit more depth. Do you have it? Do you want to put it up on?
Oh, yeah, share my screen.
Yeah.
While she's doing that, it's an incredible amount of work on the policy committee, as you can see by the cross-referencing of the policies, how many there are, and being intimate with those policies is key to making sure that all those cross-references.
Yeah, and I'll mention something about those cross-references because they were a very specific effort to make sure that people understand that these that no one policy stands alone, that it is interrelated with existing policies in our community. That is not just for the public to know. That was our diversity committee itself was not always fully aware of that, and this really helped them recognize that they're building off of something. It's not something completely out of the blue. So if I'll just walk through just some of the main areas. The first area is generally accepted beliefs and agreements, and you can see in here that the attempt here is to make sure that diversity is a very inclusive, and I apologize for using that word over again in multiple ways, but it is a very inclusive effort, and that this is a very inclusive policy, that it is meant to provide direction to address students and adults from multiple backgrounds with multiple identities, not limited to just one or two or three. So that was a very important part of what the diversity committee recommended and the policy committee acknowledged as well. And to the goals. So this is really meant to sort of hone us in on what the goals of this policy would be. Establish organizational practices that promote and reflect these goals. In other words, put these things into practice. Examine and address any institutional barriers to ensure equity and inclusion for all students and staff. And that means to determine whether or not we have institutional barriers, and if so, which ones that we need to work on. Develop programs and activities that promote kindness, understanding, inclusion, respect, fairness, decency, and empathy. Again, broadly stated to recognize that this is important for all people, as well as, in particular, the specific efforts that might be addressed in this through this policy. Encourage teaching and learning that examines historical injustices and inequalities that have shaped our society. Again, getting to the educational mission of our school. Advanced instruction that engages students at a high level, considers multiple viewpoints, utilizes valid evidence, inspires analysis of complicated ideas, and promotes critical thinking about these topics. That is something we have been saying for many, many years here. It, however, belongs importantly in this policy. So again, you see that overlap, that connection between what we already do, or at least what we already value, and how that matters to this policy. Develop initiatives to lower barriers to success and provide new experiences to prepare students for a diverse world, and then provide professional development experiences in support. So those are the goals. And then there's an accountability and transparency section, followed by communication section. These are pretty standard in our policies. But just to get to those cross references, right? So again, this sometimes goes overlooked in our policies. The cross references are meant to reflect all those things that we already do. So for example, many of these items are crossover with our code of conduct, right? How we treat each other, you know, what's okay and what's not okay. Some are reflected in our equal opportunity and non-discrimination policy, or our programs for English language learners to address the students who speak other languages. our family engagement policy, our recruiting and hiring, right? So as we look at institutional barriers, we need to look at our staffing, and of course that is reflected also in our recruiting and hiring policy. Our textbook selection and adoption. Are we considering multiple perspectives in our selection of textbooks and other materials? And I think one of the probably the more important ones is 4810. It's the third from the bottom on that list, teaching about controversial issues. You've heard me mention that one in here before, right? We don't shy away from controversial issues in the school district. Our board policy says that we intend to address them, but it does shape how we do it, right? That we are not taking sides, that we are presenting multiple perspectives, and we are asking students to engage with those perspectives and to, really analyze what the resources say, the validity of those resources, and then to think critically about them. Again, good teaching, good learning, and that's what that's about. So you can see that crossover is really important for this policy. So that's my overview of the diversity policy. I don't usually go into great detail, but I really did think that this one maybe deserved just a little bit more time and focus. Are there questions or comments about the diversity, equity, inclusion policy?
Roger, I have a couple things I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
The first one is up under goals. It is the 4th bullet point. Encourage teaching and learning that examines historical injustices and inequalities that have shaped our society.
Mm-hmm.
It almost sounds like when you use the word shaped, that it's almost like a positive thing. Well, if there are injustices and inequalities, is there a different word that we could use there, whether it be that have impacted our society or influenced our society? Because when I hear shaped, it sounds like something positive. Shaped our society. I don't know, that maybe it's just me and it's a very minuscule thing, but I don't know, that word kind of throws me off a little. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk about, and it was like a quote that I heard recently when you're talking about under equity policy communication, that number 4810, teaching about controversial issues.
Yes.
And it was a quote I heard recently. I may not have it. I may be paraphrasing a little, but I think it's important for all of us as educators to remember to teach our students to think for themselves and not tell them what to think in that category. And I think that's really important. And, I've heard from a few community people, and those issues are very important to bring up, but we need to make sure that our students are thinking for themselves and they're not being told what to think.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's the exact language in the controversial issues policy, but that is the intent, right?
Okay, no, thank you.
I think if you also just going back up, I'm sorry, Karen has control of this. Can you just go back up to the bullets? If you go to one of the bullets here, which says advanced instruction, right? So that's the 5th bullet.
Right.
Advanced instruction that engages students at a high level. In other words, we're not feeding them facts here, right? Not in this bullet, right? We're talking about engaging them at a much higher level, right? Considering multiple viewpoints, as I think I've pointed out a couple of times, utilizes valid evidence, right? So valid evidence is also what matters here, and making sure that we're recognizing the difference. And we spend a lot of time in schools on that. Everybody from our English, our history, our science, and our library perspective, we're always looking at how to evaluate evidence. And then just moving on though, inspires analysis of complicated ideas, right? Really breaking it down and really trying to look at some of those complicated, the complications that are involved in some of this. It's not simple. It's not an either or often proposition. And that's what makes it a higher level thinking, right? Because we're talking about complicated stuff. And then promoting critical thinking about these topics. And I think that gets really to your point, that when we're promoting critical thinking, we're really asking people to, to utilize all this, evidence, analysis, etc., perspective, to really to think long and hard, to break it apart, and then to really come to some judgments, right? And so students, like grown-ups, get to do that, right? So for example, in a traditional essay, that's often what the conclusion is. It's, I've presented this evidence, I've presented these ideas, I've made these points, and now here's what I think this means. Here's what I think I support. Here's what I would propose, right? So that's often where we're going in a school situation. And while typically you might think about this more at the higher grades, sometimes we're doing this in the lower grades too. We're often modeling it at the lower grades and then developing it as students get older. And I didn't see anything that we haven't been doing, hopefully for a long, long time in our school and many other schools, right? This is considered higher order thinking. It's part of the ongoing efforts of good schooling, and so I think it factors in here in this important way, just to get to some of the points that I think you're making.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Sure.
Any
Other comments?
I'd just like to publicly thank the DEI committee and the policy committee for what I think is a great policy. It's really way beyond what I thought would come out of it. So it's great. It's very inclusive. I hate to use that term, but it is. So thank you.
Thanks. And I won't do that with every policy here, but if anybody has any questions for any of our first reads, because the next time you get it in terms of a vote to approve it and to add it to the policy list. Any questions or comments about any of the other ones? All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
So moving on to information for the board, there are several items there. The brochure for the summer law conference. If anyone is interested in attending that, that is live, I believe, in Albany. The extracurricular activity report, and then just a recap of the year-end dates that Roger went through in his superintendent's report. There's a thank you letter to the editor that was written, a copy of that. There are also 2 documents in there regarding the goals and objectives, the board goals that Karen put together. So please review that. That was requested at the last meeting. And then finally, the cook manager job description, which I'm sure you'd like to address a bit.
Yeah. And Dana Wood and I have been working on this. This is really very much Dana's effort. He's been leading our support staff throughout the district, and we are looking at a new position. I guess it's not really a new position since we have had a food service manager in the past. That position is vacant. This would be a different look at that. So you want to talk about that a little bit, Dana? About what a cook manager would be and why we think we need it?
Sure. When we looked at this, we kind of looked back at what we had, a part-time food service director, and some of the issues that came out of a part-time position that came up, and really seeing how to improve that, because going forward, the district does need a food service director that is qualified, and I am not that. I'm kind of holding it because that was just what happened. But in terms of child nutrition in the state of New York, every district needs a qualified food service director. And what they said is, when I spoke to them last week, in essence, if you don't have something like this, a position like this, in the end, the state could come back and take away your reimbursements because you don't have a qualified person there, and they laid out what the qualifications are. So looking at some of the issues we had the last time around with part-time position, as well as trying to fill gaps when people are out, came up with a cook manager position, which is a CSCA position It is currently in the CSEA contracts, so it is listed there. Someone that would oversee both buildings in terms of cafeteria staff, helping create menus, food ordering, things like that, but also having that official title as food service director. And goes that with that is the qualifications that one typically needs for that position. It just kind of, in terms of as we're coming out of COVID and we're get back into serving meals, hopefully in the cafeteria in a more normal sense, getting back into the nutritional guidelines, kind of going back to where the district was, where the board was 4 or 5 years ago when they created the part-time position of the School of Nutrition as a forefront, and having a person that is dedicated to do that. Not someone that has the title because that's what we needed to do at the time.
Great, thanks, Dana. Any questions or comments about the cook manager job description there? We know we put that on a little late, but we wanted to get that information to you. Ultimately, if the board supported it, we would probably want to create it as a position, since this particular title we haven't had before, and then we would want to do a search and fill it. So we wouldn't want to do that unless the board thinks it's a good idea. I'm not necessarily asking you right now if you think it is, but we're gonna we'll be coming back to this soon, and we would want you to let us know what you think.
I know since I've been part of this board, we've struggled with that aspect of it, getting a food nutritional person. So this might be the ticket to getting that position filled. So
we talked about it during negotiation times, around the time of negotiations. We did discuss it, but we didn't make any hard decisions about it. The difference, just so you know, the distinction Dana just made between a food service director who is not in the Civil Service Employees Association, the union, versus one who is a cook manager, is that a person who's in the union is expected to do the conduct the duties of people in the contract, and that includes, in this case, cooking. The unusual part about having a food service manager not in the union is that the union can actually challenge that person doing the actual cooking. From that perspective, they see the managers doing management, not cooking, and that cooking is part of the job descriptions that are in the civil service. So by not trying to do this from outside of the association, the CSEA, then it allows a much wider range of duties. So that's the pro of that. There is a con, just so you know, and it's not one that we're unfamiliar with. The manager side of the cook manager, it's tough to do from within the association, right? It's tough for one member of the association to manage another member of the association. That being said, we do that here in an informal way in a number of positions, including head custodians, head bus drivers, etc. So we do address that there, and sometimes that can be a challenge, sometimes not. It sort of depends on the situation and the people involved. We don't foresee this as the as a direction without its own challenges, but it's probably going to be. I think it's more likely to be successful based on our conversations and our history with this, and as Rick said, just some of the ongoing attempts to meet our district goals in food service that we've sometimes met and sometimes not here. So I think this would be a worthwhile consideration for moving forward. Any other questions or comments about cook manager job description? Okay, we'll probably bring you something back the next meeting, and maybe that will be creating the position. Does that sound about right, Karen? Yeah, that would probably be a creating the position decision, and then and then should that pass, then we would know we would go ahead and do the search and then bring you a person to attach to that at the next step. So that would be the progression.
Great, thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to linking goals with agenda items. I have a few here if you'd like them.
Yes.
Under the first goal, students first and foremost, bullet 1 and 3 are the diversity policy first read, the 0105 policy. Under the 6th, which is explore collaborative efforts for social service, that was mentioned in the future planning. And then under goal 2, education, bridging the socioeconomic gradient, was the summer book program, and also the 2 trips, the DC trip and the New York City trip that were planned. So those are.
What was that again?
Oh, that was number 2.
Education.
Yes.
And then goal 4, leadership, the first bullet, develop a succession planning process, the position we were just talking about. Yeah, just preparation for vacancies and district administration.
Yep.
Or I guess it's just district administration, but I think that works, right?
Yes.
I think there's another one, Rick, and I don't know what
Oh,
category.
Colleen's talking.
Sorry. Just the vaccination process for the community. I don't know what that falls under. I can't pull it up on my other screen, but it's whatever category that is, like community or something.
Community outreach.
Sure, why not?
Maintain open and effective communication with public staff, students, published articles, and they don't, that's not it, I don't know, that's somewhere in there.
Find it.
Okay.
Find it.
Start with the goal number and then just kind of do a doctor signature drift off.
Everybody's on mute.
If you think of any additional goals that are linked, please let Karen know. Next up is capital project. Capital project update. Is this Dana or
I don't know if
Roger?
there is any.
If not, there is a change order.
Yes.
There is. You want to just talk about where we are? Because we're at the closeout stage, but we're not closed out yet.
Right, I mentioned already about the ban, and the sale of the ban, so that will happen, this month, to finalize. But yeah, we are, at the point of closing out a lot of the contracts, nothing's final. But two of the contractors have already been closed out, the others are pretty close, so probably the final stages of review through Mosaic, and soon will be coming our way. I think there's still a few items on the punch list for Dow Electric and Luck Brothers that they're working through. But other than that, I think the others, I mean, even Elmer Davis, we just sent a payment out for 3 different payments there. Payment applications 5, 6, and 7. What's remaining is basically the retainage and coverage for the difference between the insurance claim that we recovered and what the insurance company did not pay for. So that is what is left, what is remaining for Elmer Davis. About $79,000.
Thank you.
I like that we're not mincing words in the executive content here.
Oh yeah, they're in confidence.
Yeah, I just like that we're not mincing words in the description here.
Oh, is that my executive backup?
I appreciate the honesty, directness.
I saved candor for the confidential backup information. Sometimes, only sometimes.
As we get closer to July, it gets a little more flowery as well. Any other discussion? Change order? That's just the roof, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really just looking at it,
Yeah.
finally getting around to submitting a change order based on work that was
Yep.
done last fall, basically.
Okay. Any questions on that? If not, meeting minutes, we're under consent. And then we go on to a very long list of personnel matters. Clear the throat, get ready to go here. I've never seen an N before. A through N. So, all right, without further ado, A is appoint interim superintendent. A and B, just for clarity, is Dr. Catania gets done on technically June 30th, it is.
Yeah.
And then there's a 1-day hiatus between the retirement and when he can start as a per diem employee. And so the first resolution here is to appoint a interim superintendent for 1 day. And that will be for July 1st. And I want to thank Dana very, very much for doing that and stepping up and taking on that interim role for the day. I'm not sure if you're going to be allowed into the office or not, but we'll see.
Oh, you get the key for the day.
So, that carpet. The recommended action, whereas the Board of Education has accepted the retirement of Dr. Roger P. Catania effective July 1st, 2021, and whereas Mr. Timothy Seymour has been appointed as the Lake Placid Central School Superintendent of Schools effective August 2nd, 2021, and whereas the board must appoint an interim superintendent of schools for July 1st, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the appointment of Dana Wood to serve in the capacity as interim superintendent of schools for July 1st, 2021 at the daily rate equal to $500 a day inclusive of his current salary. May I have a motion to accept this appointment?
Yes.
Thank you, Liam.
Yes.
Seconded by Colleen. Thank you. Any discussion or comments? If not, I will ask you to vote.
Five yes.
5 yes, 0 no, the appointment is passed. The second appointment is for interim superintendent, and the recommended action, whereas the Board of Education has accepted the retirement of Dr. Roger P. Catania effective July 1st, 2021, whereas Mr. Timothy Seymour has been appointed to Lake Placid Central School Superintendent of Schools effective August 2nd, 2021, and whereas the board must appoint an interim superintendent of schools for the interim period prior to August 2nd, 2021, and whereas there may be a need after August 2nd, 2021 for Dr. Catania to offer consultant services to support the transition from Dr. Catania to Mr. Seymour. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the appointment of Dr. Roger P. Catania to the employed as interim superintendent of schools from July 2nd, 2021 through August 1st, 2021, in accordance with the terms of the memorandum of agreement attached hereto, and authorizes the president of the Board of Education to execute the attached memorandum of agreement. May I have a motion for this appointment, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Daniel. A second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion?
I mean, I guess we should have asked, is this guy qualified?
Thanks, Roger, for sticking around.
Where's the resume? And some references at least.
I can't offer any recommendation on this.
5-0. Wow.
5 yes.
Okay, 5 yes, 0 against, so the appointment is approved. Teaching staff tenure recommendation. Recommended action upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Brandon Bosworth, who holds a professional certificate in social studies, 7 through 12, is hereby granted tenure in the area of social studies on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion to accept this recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. Daniel. Second. Colleen. Okay. Any discussion? If not, please vote.
That was weird. Can everybody please raise your hand to vote yes or no?
Yes.
How many say yes?
Yes.
Did Colleen raise her hand?
Yes.
Okay, it's 5 yes.
So 5 yes, 0 against. The recommendation is accepted. The next teaching staff tenure recommendation upon the recommendation of superintendent Megan Monahan, sorry, who holds a professional certificate in childhood education and early childhood education, is hereby granted tenure in the area of elementary education on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion to accept this recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Liam.
Thank you, Liam.
5 yes.
5 yes, 0 against. The recommendation passes. The next tenure recommendation, recommended action upon recommendation of the superintendent, Brianna Wiley, who holds a professional certificate in early childhood education, and students with disabilities, grade 1 through 6, is hereby granted tenure in the area of elementary education on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion for this recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Second. Colleen.
Thank you.
Miss Weil comes highly recommended by my 6-year-old. So
Great.
That's my praise.
Probably the highest.
5 yes.
So it's 5 yes, 0 no. So the motion passes. Teaching assistant tenure recommendation. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Sandra Ashley, who holds a level 2 teaching assistant certificate, is hereby granted tenure in the area of teaching assistant on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Second. Don't be shy. Colleen. Thank you. And a vote if there's no questions.
Five yes.
Okay, 5 yes. Teaching assistant tenure recommendation. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, is it Alicia?
Yes.
Alicia Blinn, who holds a level 3 teaching assistant certificate, is hereby granted tenure in the area of teaching assistant on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion for this recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you, Liam. Second.
Colleen was in there.
And if we can vote, please.
Try again. 5 yes.
Okay, 5 yes, 0 no, motion passes. Teaching assistant tenure recommendation. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Wendy Fox, who holds a level 3 teaching assistant certificate, is hereby granted tenure in the area of teaching assistant on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion to accept this recommendation?
Yes.
You, Dan?
Second.
You, Daniel? Not asking for discussion or questions because we've been through these tenures. So if you do have questions or comments, please just interrupt.
Five yes.
Okay. And a teaching assistant tenure recommendation. Upon the recommendation of superintendent, Michelle Minot, who holds a level 3 teaching assistant certificate, is hereby granted tenure in the area of teaching assistant on September 1st, 2021. May I have a motion for this recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you, Liam.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
So I just wanted to underscore this important moment, right? So you just voted to approve 7 tenure recommendations for faculty. These are people who have committed the last 3 or 4 or more years of their professional life to our school district. So tonight you have just officially committed our district to them. And I think that's a really important moment. We're really proud of this group of faculty members. I just want to say how happy I am that they are now part of the permanent faculty, and just offer one more word of congratulations to 3 teachers, Brandon Bosworth, Megan Monahan, and Brianna Weil, and 4 teaching assistants, Sandra Ashley, Alicia Blinn, Wendy Fox, and Michelle Minot. Congratulations to all of them, and thank you for being a part of this faculty. And thank you for approving those tenure recommendations.
That was 5 yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Good. Teaching staff resignation. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the resignation of Megan Brittschneider, math teacher in the middle high school, effective June 30th, 2021. May I have a motion to accept this resignation, please?
Yes.
Yes.
William?
Colleen.
Colleen? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any discussion, comments, questions on this resignation?
Hope that she will be back someday.
Five yes.
Okay, 5 yes, 0 no, so the resignation is accepted. Leave of absence. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the unpaid leave of absence for Brian Van Nordstrom Jr., physical education teacher in the elementary school for the 2021-2022 school year. May I have a motion for this leave of absence?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Second.
Thank you, Daniel. Questions, comments?
Roger, you're gonna come back and coach basketball next year?
I won't make any comment on that.
Wow.
I will say that Mr. Van Nostrum is working on his administrative license, and is at the point where he needs to do an administrative internship, and he is planning on doing that full time next fall, spring, and that's the reason for this leave. So we wish him well, and who we find to replace him coaching basketball, I'll leave that one up to the school boards.
Okay. We will be accepting resumes, so,
5 yes.
okay. So motion passes for the leave. We have a bus driver assignment change, head bus driver, upon recommendation of the superintendent. Move Nicole Corson, 10-month bus driver, to 12-month head bus driver and head of buildings and grounds beginning July 1st, 2021. The rate of pay will be $29.25 per hour off step for the 2021-22 school year. May I have a motion for this change, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion or questions? Yes. Great.
5 yes.
Motion passes 5-0. The next item, M, is under the consent. So next up is outside consultant contract approval. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the consultant contract for Tara Wright, which is attached in board docs. May I have a motion to accept this contract?
Yes.
Dan and Liam? Good. And vote, please.
Five yes.
Okay. The motion passes 5-0. Additional action items. We have our first donation acceptance. This is so whereas Lake Placid Central School Board of Education policy 6255 donations, gifts, and grants to the district allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts, donations, and grants having a value of less than $1,500, whereas monies have been granted as follows. The Educational Opportunity Fund in the amount of $4,370 for the middle high school summer reading program. Now therefore be resolved in accordance with policy 6255. The Board of Education hereby accepts the check from the Educational Opportunity Fund, K. Douglas Scholarship Fund, in the total amount of $4,375 for the summer reading program at the middle high school. May I have a motion to pass this, please, to accept the donation?
Yes.
Colleen.
Thank you. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion on this?
So this is, was mentioned earlier in our future planning discussions that our summer reading programs are being funded from outside sources. And the Ed Op Fund it has started this process, but they do plan to continue it into the future to provide support for our summer reading programs. So this check for $4,375 is welcome and generous, and just want to say thank you to the Ed Op Fund for supporting our students.
So the K. Douglas Scholarship Fund needs to be removed.
It does.
Yes, it's
Okay.
just the Educational Opportunity Fund.
Okay.
That's noted on. Oh. Okay.
A huge thank you for supporting our students.
Liam?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, 5 yes, 0 no, so the donation acceptance is accepted. The next donation is whereas Lake Placid Central School Board of Education policy 6255 donation gifts and grants to the district allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts, donations, grant having value of less than $1,500, whereas monies have been granted as follows. The Henry and Mildred Eline Foundation in the amount of $25,000 for the elementary school playground. Now therefore be resolved in accordance with policy 6255. The Board of Education hereby accepts the check from the Henry and Mildred Eline Foundation in the total amount of $25,000 for the elementary school playground. May I have a motion to accept this donation?
So moved.
Dan, second?
Second.
Daniel, thank you. Another huge thank you to
Yes.
the foundation.
So we didn't provide you any background information on this because the check arrived yesterday, and it was somewhat unexpected. And as you suggest, we recognize just how generous and how welcome this is. The elementary school playground improvements over the last few years have been driven by the ideas gathered from students, led by Principal Sonia Franklin, who joined us earlier tonight, and funded through some really outstanding fundraising led by Mrs. Franklin by our community. Right, so we have LEAF grant for $50,000. That's helping to pay for part of this major piece of equipment that's being purchased. We have the Uline Foundation provide $25,000. Other private funds are included in all that to cover the costs of some of there's already been some equipment installed, but this is the big major central piece of the playground that so many of our kids have been waiting for many years. I hope that as planned, it's installed before the start of the school year so they can come back to school and really enjoy the new playground that we hope will be in by then. Thanks to the Uline Foundation, to everybody for their support.
It's 5 yes.
Okay. So the motion passes 5 yes, 0 no. On to special education. That was a consent unless there's questions regarding the July 6th packet. Notice that the special education committee has been particularly busy by the size of the packets there. This is the time of the year, so.
It is.
Thank them for all their hard work.
Yeah. Let's see, good of the cause, do we have?
Me too now.
Okay, thank you. We'll enter the adjournment phase. Next meeting is July 6th, 2021. That will be our reorganizational meeting. Old agenda topics. I have the DEI discussion that we had on for a new last time. We'll put that under the old. Any other new agenda topics?
What about the 4 goals and objectives?
That's what we did. You and I did.
Right, but it's still an old agenda.
Yeah, it can get,
Just don't put it on.
no.
Okay.
I believe it's been met.
Okay.
So,
Whereas the DI discussion wasn't.
right, we
Very
didn't.
good.
If nothing new, recommended action is motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Daniel. Second.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so we're adjourned at 7:53.
Made it under 8 o'clock. Well done.
Yeah, amazing. Pardon?
Oh, I heard you were talking, but we had you at the same time.
Oh, no, I had you off for a second. Karen, I'll stop by in the morning and drop off those 2